Hello, parents, educators, and nerdy D&D fans. You have found our new home for Area of Effect, a talk show where we discuss how tabletop role-playing games benefit the whole family. We're currently in process of shifting all our old but golden episodes over to this new channel by posting a new episode every weekday until we catch back up to our new episodes. We would love your help getting this new channel up and running with a follow, share, or review. And thanks for joining us on our quest to bring more adventurers to the table.
Hi there, I'm Hugh from Poderation. If you like today's show, why not check out Dungeons and Dragonfruits, the bizarre, strange, and queer in every sense of the word D&D podcast. Join 5 friends as they laugh, learn, and adventure their way through the weird, wonderful world of Widdershins, where dragons hatch from trees and have adventures of all forms in every shape and size. Available wherever you can get your podcasts.
Do you like dungeons?
If you kill us all in this dungeon, how are you gonna feel?
14 acid damage.
How about dragons?
Is there a dragon here, though?
There could be.
I'm Paul, the DM and producer of Make Believe Heroes, a 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons adventure for all ages. If you're looking for top quality production values, including music, sound effects, with humor, heart, and occasionally a bit of horror, then go now and check out Make Believe Heroes, a proud member of the Poderation Network.
A Kids Table podcast.
So let's say you're a DM, and you're leading a table of kids and adults through a dungeon when, finally, the thing that you've been preparing for and dreading happens. They have to make a plan to get around an obstacle. You might react the way that our kid player Chloe does in a recent episode of our actual play series, The Kids Table.
Yeah, because, what if it doesn't work? What if we go to jail? What if we never make it out? What if we perish peacefully?
It's a game, and here's the thing. Either of our choices will still have consequences. So we're going to have to pick something. So does this feel like...
Unless we run and hide.
Then the game ends.
Oh.
Do you have to protect kids from making bad decisions at the D&D table? Should the adults just make the plan and have the kids follow? What possible benefits do planning sessions have for kids? Today on Area of Effect, Allison and I talk through how to structure planning sessions so that your kids gain the best possible benefits and your game survives the process.
Welcome to Area of Effect, a podcast by the Kids Table, where we discuss how tabletop RPGs benefit kids and answer your questions about playing TTRPGs with the kids at your own table. Good afternoon, Ryan.
Hi, Allison. How's it going?
It's great. It's so lovely to see you again after your many travels this past month.
Yeah, Chicago, Colorado, Texas. I've been all over the Midwest. Hello, friend.
Everywhere but Florida.
Florida's not in the Midwest. Move to Florida, maybe I'll come see you.
Oh, all right. I'll get right to work on that.
How are you?
I'm good, surviving, trying to keep 2 small children busy in the summer while also hoping that they don't forget all the math and vocabulary that they learned this last year in school. I don't know, man. I'm treading water and keeping my head above water, but that's about it right now.
If you are a parent listening to this right now, no matter the time of year, and you are treading water, we are right there with you.
We see you.
We see you.
I would throw you a floaty, but I don't have one myself.
Yeah, dog paddling. Just keep the head above water.
Just keep swimming.
I feel a lot like Chloe in that clip that we played at the beginning of the podcast. Just like, is this all right? Are we going to be okay? Are we going to make it through? Can I just decide not to do summer this year?
I would be on board with that.
I'm told that that's not an option. That's not how time works, but
Dang it.
It would be nice.
It would be, yeah.
No,
unfortunately, the world of parenting is not a game, and you can't just hit pause when you feel like it.
Yeah, that's it.
Just keeps running.
It would be great. Who created this video game? I want the pause option.
Yeah.
But that clip is part of episode 12 of season 2 of the Kids Table that just dropped last week, and it's one of my weirdly favorite episodes that I've gotten to edit for this season. And it's weird because I didn't think that I would enjoy this one because it's just planning. Like
You
this is
weren't even planning, you were planning on condensing this to like a few minutes in the next
correct.
episode, but then
Correct.
you decided to make it its own episode.
Correct. Yeah. No, I totally thought when I was looking at the season arcs and how we are going to break these down into smaller episodes, I totally thought this was going to be like 2 to 3 minutes on the beginning of what will eventually be season 2, episode 13. And then I got into this meet and it was great. Like it's just the kids planning on how they're going to break into a library. And it sounds kind of eh, and it's real fun. If you watch the episode, you get to watch the evolution of these kids' plan over the space of 15 minutes. And I didn't really cut out a lot. There's not a lot of dead space in this episodes that I had to cut. So this is really just their plan over the space of 15 minutes as they're trying to figure out how are we going to get into this library now that we have been shut out of it.
I
And
do have to say, with my ADHD brain, I typically hate planning episodes. Even
yes,
Critical Role, I will fast forward, jump ahead. I cannot do it because my brain can't stay focused. But
yes,
I did stay focused when I was watching the draft of this, so
yeah.
there's some magic there. And I think watching the process they go through is important.
Yes, and I think that that's why it's actually so much more captivating than I thought it was going to be because the process is laid so much more bare, right? In a lot of like adult D&D sessions, we already know how to plan. Like we had to make a plan for college, we had to make a plan to buy a house. Some of us have to just make a plan to like call somebody at the bank because that's really scary and like this is me I'm talking about. You have to 20-minute plan for a 2-minute phone call.
Oh, I'm
As
shocked.
yeah, yeah, be shocked. Yep. Uh, but the kids, because they're kids, the process points are laid bare for us to see in the video in the episode, and it's really cool to watch their little brains like try and attack this problem with all the tools that they know that they have. And then the way that Raynell and I sort of facilitate that without dominating the conversation, I think is really instructive for how you help kids make plans at the D&D table and why it's important too.
Yeah, and making plans is so critical to kids' development because they're learning so many like executive functioning
Yes.
skills in the
Yes.
process.
Correct.
Like realizing what all your options are ahead of you, exercising your working memory to remember what all the options
Yep.
are,
Yep.
thinking ahead to what potential consequences there might be, which they don't even have their prefrontal cortex fully
Yeah,
developed
for
yet. So
sure.
that's
For
like
sure.
really difficult for
Yeah.
them, a really challenging exercise.
Yeah.
And, making the best decision, maybe it's not the most appealing decision. So they're having to control kind of their impulses and make kind of a more cognitive, logical decision.
Yep. Yep.
They have to plan, but they have to keep flexible thinking in their brain in case somewhere along the process something goes wrong and they have to be ready to address it in a different way.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
I think it's planning, organizing, and executing goals and teamwork.
Yeah, that
Gosh, look
verbal
at
process.
D&D, man. Look how much you
So
can
many
learn.
things that you notice. So many
It's so
things that they
good.
learn. Yeah. Yeah, that verbal processing in particular, because this isn't just one person making a plan either. This is a group trying to make a plan too. So there are competing interests, competing ideas, and they have to work together to do this using their various skills. So let's talk through that process then. What are some of the things that you saw in that episode, Allison, that you think that we should raise up?
Well, previous to this clip, they had for a while just been sharing ideas, and I think they came up with like 6 different options for how to respond to the king's request before they decided they weren't going to go along with what he was asking them to do. So they needed an alternative option to get into the library.
Yep.
By the way, I think it's so funny that they're breaking into a library. It's not like a bank or a vault.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like
it's
a
so great.
library.
It's so it's almost like I planned that intentionally. Like, yeah, knowledge is something that you want to seek, children.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, yeah, yeah. And then one moment, just before this clip, I believe, was Raynell running interference between Dylan's just like passive instinct to want to blow everything up every time, like
Yep.
he was asking you for TNT,
Yep.
But you
Yep.
were like, this doesn't exist in the
Yep.
D&D world.
Yep.
And Winston at one point was like getting really nervous about what you guys were talking about and almost wanting to call the guards. So Raynell had to like jump in and be like, wait, we're not going to actually have TNT in the middle of a crowd of people in the city center. Okay,
Yep.
please don't call the guards.
Yep.
So Raynell jumps in. Go ahead.
So let's tease that out, actually. So Dylan is our teenage character, our teenage player, who is playing also a teenager, and
A
is
rogue, that's important because he's
and
very rogue.
it's very rogue, and that is
Yeah.
important too. Like teenagers, when they're playing these sorts of games, this is their chance to push boundaries and to test. And like Dylan in real life is probably not going to want to set off, a bomb on a castle wall, but
No.
like this is his chance to like pretend, right? What could this be? Beckett, my little rule follower, never going to do something like that. At least not as a 9-year-old. But Dylan, the teenager, wants to play around with that. So one of the challenges that I have as a DM is how do you say no when they are making a plan that A, doesn't work with the story, and B, doesn't work developmentally with where they are either. Like, I don't just want to let him murder everybody and murder all the
No.
guards, right?
Yeah.
That's not actually one of the goals that I have for this session. But he's so excited about it. And he has a plan for it. So you'll see actually at the beginning of episode 13, I over the course of that session in my head, like, what do I do with this? And I actually do let them have something like an explosive for the plan, but it's fireworks. And I think
That was genius.
And I think that the way that I phrase it at one point is something like distraction instead of destruction.
Brilliant.
So, like, first of all, that's where the yes and or the yes or principle comes back into play, right? Like, yes, TNT would be interesting, or you could have something with the same sort of effect that also doesn't
Isn't going to kill anyone.
So, like, that's one of my responsibilities as the DM to be looking out for both the plot and the players and figuring out developmentally and mechanically, where can I take that idea and put it into, the second rule that we have at the table, the rule of cool. Like, how can we make this cool and still, within the boundaries that we are setting as players?
Yeah, because you don't want him to feel completely shut down.
Correct.
Because then he's not having fun. He's not being allowed to participate. He feels like his character's skills aren't needed or even allowed
Correct.
to be used at the table. So,
Correct.
so you did a great way of like honoring and valuing his character and what he brings to the table while still like slightly nudging it in a more kid-friendly direction.
Correct. That's why, yeah. So instead of saying no, saying yes or. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was giving me major Gandalf at Bilbo's birthday party vibes with like the fantasy fireworks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep. Just wait for the animations for episode 13. They might.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm excited. So anyway, all that happens, and then Chloe and Beckett both kind of start to get nervous about the consequences of this pretty weighty decision that you've put on these young children.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Children can handle hard things. We've talked
They
about
can.
that before, and it
It's
does you no good to hide them from the world. And I feel like we structured it in such a way that they could handle, committing a crime for the sake of freeing somebody.
Yeah.
Right, those sort of moral gray areas, like especially when the appeal to authority that they have already made has revealed that the authority is corrupt in some pretty
Mm-hmm.
key ways. This is also a chance for them to explore, like, what does justice look like in this scenario? How do you do this? And so a lot of what they are trying to do in this planning session is how do we get into the library, A, breaking the fewest number of rules, and B, without hurting anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they start looking at the tools that they have at their disposal. And so they start going through their character sheets, right? And Raynell models this first. Raynell is like, I can blind and deafen people. Can that help at all? And that gets Chloe looking at her character sheet. She can cast Disguise Self. Beckett can also cast Disguise Self. Okay, so if you have these two things, and that's when Raynell gets them talking to each other about what can you do with these skills that you know you have.
Yeah, I love that. And one of my favorite things is like planting little things in kids' character sheets, especially in like the
Yes.
items and equipment that like you don't really know what the purpose is when you give it to them, but you know that they might be able to come up with some crazy creative thing to do with it later down the road. So,
Yep. 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 Yep.
yeah.
And sometimes they need to be reminded of what they have. And that's why a simple character sheet is really helpful because it sort of gives them the outline, the top things that they can do. But that's where also for kids who are good readers, that big character sheet is really helpful because they will find ways to surprise you. They will find solutions to the problem that you as the DM were not expecting. And so you as the DM sort of have to roll with it and figure out if this is what they're wanting to do, what are the consequences in game and out of game, and then sort of keep going with it.
Yeah. Okay, so when the kids are in this moment of indecision, Raynell steps in and kind of rises to the role of the adult at the table or the parent at the table. A lot of times the adult's role is to kind of step back to let the kids shine and to let the kids take control. But in this moment, she realizes she needs to step up and help kind of guide this whole process. So why is it important what Raynell did?
Because she didn't take over. Adults, because we're adults, we are planners by our nature, right? We have to plan. And if we have kids, then we have to make multiple plans, right? So it's really easy to just come down from on high and say, okay, so you've told me this, you've told me this, you've told me this. This is what we're doing. She doesn't do that. She doesn't take over the process. She doesn't manipulate them into doing what she wants to do. She takes their ideas and I think a good way to think about it is that instead of putting the puzzle pieces together, she frames the puzzle.
Ooh, I
So,
like that.
right? So they have brought forth these pieces, these different pieces from what they have, and they want to make a picture out of it. She can see multiple pictures that they could make. And instead of directing them towards one, she just gives an outline, right? She gives the boundaries for what is possible and she says, so this is how these two pieces could fit together, or they could do this, or what do you think? There's a lot of modeling that Raynell does around dialogue in this space. She's constantly pulling the kids back into the conversation because you can see at certain points Beckett drifts off a little bit, Chloe drifts off a little bit, and I want to say that that's okay too. Like your kids are not going to concentrate on planning sessions the entire time. Their little brains just can't do that, and that's okay. This is where the ebb and flow of community is really helpful because they are still listening. You can actually watch Chloe over the course of the episode. There are some times when she is just drawing on the piece of paper in front of her, and then she'll snap up and she will give input. She is actually engaged in the process, even if she isn't making eye contact, even if she isn't like constantly speaking, she is engaged. She just needs space to process the way that she needs to process. And that's what Raynell gives them is the space that they need to process the puzzle that they are putting together.
Yeah, and one of the really important things she does is reminds them of their target outcome because they're kind of starting to get a little lost in the weeds, thinking about overwhelmed by the number of choices and the potential consequences and all those iterations. And then she kind of reminds them this is a game.
Right. Right.
And I think one of the important things she says is that whatever choice we make, there are going to be consequences. Kind of acknowledging to them that no choice is the happy. We're going to skip through the fields and get the king and the two queens to hold hands and dance in the fields,
Right.
right? Like this situation is murky and complicated, and there's no one decision that's going to have zero consequences and everything's going to be happy, right? Like every decision is going to have something that it means that we have to deal with down the road that isn't necessarily pleasant. Um, and then Chloe says, like, well, what if we just hide and don't do anything? And then I love how she's like, well, then there's no game.
Yeah, it was really great. It was such a good line.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do have to make a choice because, one of the things that I had to learn growing up was that not making a choice is actually making a choice.
Yeah.
When I felt like I was too scared to make a choice,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, then I won't decide, but it actually was deciding.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great thing that she's learning too.
Yeah, and it's important to differentiate that from rule three at our table, which is we play the game because it's fun, and when it stops being fun, we stop playing the game. There's a difference between not choosing and invoking rule three, right? It's not that it's not that we're saying you have to make the kids make a choice right then.
or the game is over. If Chloe had been legitimately afraid at that point, if she had legitimate anxiety about what was going on, we would have stopped playing and taken care of her as a person before starting up again, right? That's not what was going on in that clip. There's a piece of what's going on in that clip. She's playing up, right? She's being funny. If you watch the video, if you watch the episode proper, like she's smiling throughout this. She's sort of giving Serena, her character, this sort of depth. But there was a kernel there that Raynell, as her mom, could recognize that, like, okay, Chloe needs just a little bit more encouragement, a little bit more bringing back into the scope, and does need to be confronted with the fact that eventually you are going to have to make a choice. This is a story, and for the story to continue, the story will require a choice. But I think it's important to point out that there's a difference between forced choice like that and stopping the game because the kid is legitimately like unable to play. I think it's also really good too that Raynell was at the table, because my role as the DM during a planning session is real difficult because I know what's coming next. So I know what I have planned in the plot. And necessarily that will bias the way that I influence their plan, right? So I know what's going to happen in the library. I know what's going to happen under the library, spoiler alert. And right. And I know like some of the things that they are planning aren't going to mesh with what I have conceived the next part of the plot is going to be. So having an adult player character is super helpful because she's the one then that can help direct the planning session rather than me. You can see in the episode, I play two different roles as the DM during this planning session. Me, Ryan, the DM, I'm there to answer questions mechanically. So, does my spell do this? How many guards are there? What's the distance from this door to this door? I can provide those out of character, out of game to help them put their pieces together. And that's a really vital role, right? Because they are working in my world. So it's my responsibility to define the parameters of that world. And then also, I have an NPC there in the scene too. And that's crucial because then when even Raynell starts to go off slightly, there's a point at which they talk about splitting the party and are like, going to really split the party. I'm like, I can't let them split the party. So then that's when I finally have the NPC speak up and say, are you sure you want to do that? Don't you all want to go through the door together? And then the NPC gets
Intense.
volunteered into the plan, which was not my plan, but really funny.
You didn't want the priest to be setting off fireworks
Well, it
to
actually
help
has a
someone
really
break in.
funny consequence, metagaming later, but you'll see when you watch the end of episode 14, I think, actually. But that was also really helpful. So I would encourage you as a DM, if you've got kids at your table and they are in a planning session, have that other adult who can be the voice of adulting. And then make sure that there's an NPC also so that you can have a limited voice in that planning session.
Yeah, I love that. I've played with just kids at my table and with kids and adults at my table, and it makes my job so much easier and less confusing when there's another adult at the table to step into that role.
Yep, for sure, for sure, for sure.
So, what are some of the things, developmental benefits that going through planning sessions like this can have on kids at various different developmental stages?
So one of them for sure is that verbal processing is for kids who get in their head, forcing them to get those ideas out of their head and put their idea up against somebody else's idea. That is a really critical skill for kids to learn. This is one thing that they try and do with group work during elementary school. And all of us have stories about being in groups that did their group work well or maybe not so well. Or, have you ever been the kid that thought that they were the only one doing the whole group's work? The D&D table is a better way, I would say, to get that group work modality down. Because you're working towards a goal and then have an immediate result that you can see. Allison, you also brought up executive function. Can you define for us what that means?
You want me to define it?
Yes, please.
planning, organizing, monitoring, and executing a process.
That was incredible.
Is that good? I don't know.
I thought I put you on the spot, but that was really good.
You did put me on the spot. And some people are really good at this and other people are not. And some people are good at it in certain situations and not in other situations.
Yep.
And I mean, let me tell you, what area of your life does not benefit from having a good, a healthy, developed sense of executive function?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Executive function is something that a lot of us struggle with too. Like if you have a certain diagnosis, executive function might be a part of that diagnosis. And that doesn't mean that you get to abdicate responsibility for planning, right?
Yep.
It doesn't mean that you get to just like say, I'm never going to shop again, or I'm never going to call the bank again, right? Like you have to figure out what to do with that process. So helping kids early, whether or not they have a diagnosis, but helping kids early, giving them the skills to understand executive functioning, planning, and executing, and all those sorts of things, will help in the long term because the more that they practice these sorts of skills, the better they'll be, no matter who they grow up to be, how they grow up to be. Practicing these skills young will give them tools that they can use later.
And I think one of the main advantages of practicing this skill with D&D versus in independent play, like if your kid is planning how to build a magnetile structure and then they're having to like plan ahead to get the supports right and adapt as they go, that's helpful too. But in D&D, they're having to do it alongside other people, which we know that we do have to do a lot in life. And that is a more challenging and also more potentially rewarding way to practice executive function.
For sure. Individual and in community. You got to have both.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, I got to go now plan how to keep my kids busy for the rest of summer. I'm
going to just go lay on a bed because I have exhausted my executive function capability for the month. So I'm just going to wait until the next month.
You're on your own, kids.
Great. Love it.
It is June 30th. So
yeah. So the next month is tomorrow. Yeah. That.
Yep. Great. Good luck with that one.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Area of Effect. Check out our original actual play D&D show with kids at the table on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You can also follow us at the Kids Table D&D on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. Find resources that bring the adventure to your own table at www.thekidstablednd.com and be a part of the ongoing conversation by DMing us questions that might appear in a future episode at thekidstablednd@gmail.com. And support us by joining our quest at patreon.com/thekidstablednd. Brought to you by the Kids Table, because when kids are at the table, everyone wins!